Nowadays, Argentina is mostly known in military circles for its constant indecision on the acquisition of modern military equipment, especially tanks and fighter aircraft. All of its current tank projects go back to what is commonly considered to be the first Argentine medium tank, the TAM. However, this is not the case. Far before the TAM, in 1943, an indigenous modern medium tank was developed based on cues from American and German tank design. This tank was known as the Nahuel DL-43. Since the 1900s, the Argentine army had been involved in an arms race with its neighbors, primarily Brazil and Chile. During the interwar period, Argentina acquired 12 Vickers modified 1938 light tanks, along with various trucks, artillery pieces, and a few armored cars like the Vickers Crossley. These acquisitions bolstered the Argentine army's strength, making it the best-equipped military force in the region. Tensions on the continent began to rise with the onset of the Second World War. Although officially neutral, Argentina experienced a period of weak presidents throughout the 1930s, which favored neither the Axis nor the Allied side. Argentina's good relations with Germany and Italy further isolated it from the Allied powers, eventually leading to a rebuff from the United States. To maintain its neutral stance, Argentina planned to purchase 160 TNH-based tanks. But this plan had to be cancelled as Czechoslovakia was annexed, leaving Germany unable to supply Argentina with tanks. Between 1943 and 1944, after yet another politically divided military coup, bad news arrived for the Argentine military. The Brazilian army, under a U.S. military aid program, attained a large fleet of tanks, including M3A1 light tanks, M3 and M4 medium tanks, and various models of armored cars, including T-17s and M8s. Without the ability to import tanks, ironically due to its position of neutrality, as an answer to this step-up in the continental arms race, Argentina decided to just build them instead. The Tanque Mediano Nahuel hurriedly began development in 1943, designed by Lieutenant Colonel Alfredo Aquiles Baisi. Time was of the essence to match the quality and quantity of Brazil's tank force, and so the development was unusually fast. A mere month and a half after the project began, a full mock-up of the future medium tank was already made, along with a smaller running mock-up based on the TD-35 tractor. 2 months after that, the tank's prototype was finished, a turretless chassis with no front glacis, which was shown off to various military officers, including Baisi, current de facto president Edelmiro Farrell, and future president Juan Domingo Perón. The construction of the tank required great industrial effort, involvement of many Argentine companies, and the cooperation between branches of the military. Final assembly of the vehicle was done in the Arsenal Esteban de Luca. On June 4, 1944, 2 immobile prototypes were shown to surprise spectators in an army exhibition. A month later, on July 9th, 10 finished tanks were shown off for the public for the first time in a parade celebrating Argentine Independence Day. The tank was named Nahuel after the word in Mapudungun, the language of the Mapuche people, for jaguar, a large feline that is the only extant member of the Panthera family in South America. The tanks featured artwork of a jaguar on their hull sides. Most of the technical information of the Nahuel is missing, as a lot of the documents pertaining to it were destroyed after it left service. However, it is impossible not to address the Jaguar in the room. The tank had many similarities to early production American M4 medium tanks. With a VVSS suspension, an aircraft engine, a cast turret, and a tall hull with a sloped glassy front plate, it weighed 35 tons and had around the same dimensions as the Sherman tanks. It also featured the same crew layout, a driver and machine gunner radio operator in the hull, and a gunner, a loader, and a commander in the turret. Now this is where the similarities end, however, as its armor, armament, and other minor details are very different. The hull armor was welded and quite thick, at 80 mm, angled at 55 degrees for the front glacis, which to more astute viewers might sound familiar, if not odd, as this is the same amount of front armor as the much larger Panther tank. This came at a cost of an overloaded suspension, although to which degree this affected reliability has not been recorded. The hull side armor was around 50 mm thick, angled at 10 degrees. The turret was cast and it had a front armor of 80 mm angled at 30 degrees, which was weaker but still good enough for the time. Overall, the tank featured significantly better armor than the comparable 75 mm armed Sherman tanks. The armament chosen was a Krupp Mod 1909 75mm L30 cannon. It was shorter than the Sherman's 75mm M3 L40 cannon and considerably less powerful, but it was the most available cannon in Argentina at the time, with plenty of unopened crates of guns held in reserve and large stocks of ammunition. It was armed with high explosive shells and possibly armor-piercing as well, with a muzzle velocity of 510 meters per second, and most likely utilized Goetz artillery sights. At one point, it was proposed to upgrade the Nahuel with a Bofors Mod 1935 75mm L40 cannon, giving it some firepower parity with the Sherman, but not much information on that project has survived the test of time. The tank was also outfitted with Madsen machine guns, 3 in the hull and 1 in the turret. The hull-mounted machine guns were chambered for 7.65mm, but the coaxial was a larger heavy machine gun, most likely an 11.35mm Madsen, an uncommon weapon used by various military air services in Argentina. 2 of these hull machine guns would be later eliminated, and only the coax and 1 of the hull machine guns remained, both being Madsen 7.65mm machine guns. It had a Lorraine Dietrich EB-12W12 aircraft engine upgraded to an output of 493 horsepower at 25 RPM, also similar to the M4A1 medium tank's Continental R975, which gave the tank a respectable 14.3 horsepower per ton power-to-weight ratio, making it rather agile for its weight class, protection, and size. Per side, it had 3 bogies, the front one being noticeably flatter than the rest, a 12-teeth sprocket, 5 return rollers of which 3 were attached to the bogies, and an idler. The tracks were quite similar to the Sherman's T-51 rubber padded tracks. For communications, the tank was given a Telefunken radio, of which the specific type is not known. However, it is very likely that it was a Torn EB receiver with a 5-watt sender. The Torn EB was also known as the FUG-1 when used in armored vehicles. There are multiple plausible reasons for why the design, so similar to the Sherman, was chosen. The first one is related to the same reasons the Sherman was built: reliability and modularity. During testing, the tank was tested with a variety of engines, and plans were made for improving the armament. Bicey had hoped to create a family of vehicles based on the Nahuel, much like the Sherman itself. It also used up the stocks of obsolete or plentiful equipment like the armament, engines, and optics, all of which could be switched out if the need for improvement arose. This made it an attractive prospect for continuous upgrade and the creation of a strong backbone for the nascent armored forces. The second one is that the tide began to turn against the more Axis-aligned elements of the Argentine army, and work had to be done to extend an olive branch to the United States. Perhaps attempting to emulate their tank designs was intended as a way to resemble them, thus making them more receptive to cooperation and possibly obtain tanks in the future as well. The third is far simpler. Bicey himself had been sent as an attaché to the US in the interwar years, and he likely had contact or knowledge of American tank design. This made him put forward a simpler, off-the-shelf concept for a tank that was proven to work, instead of attempting to design something completely original. Time was of the essence to deter foreign aggression, after all. The tank was in service for 16 years, with 5 years of active use before being mothballed and held in reserve for the rest of its career. It saw use mostly in parades and in training exercises. As only 12 tanks were made, it did not see widespread use, and it was soon supplemented, then replaced, with imported Sherman and Sherman Firefly tanks. During testing and trials, a number of faults were discovered. With regards to situational awareness, it was noted that the driver had poor visibility, and, more importantly, the gunner's sights would often go out of zero. The main automotive issue was track throwing, which seemed to be an intermittent issue, possibly related to crew inexperience with the new vehicle type. After the Sherman tanks arrived, the crews began to refer to the Nahuel tanks as old cars, simply because they were more awkward to drive and seemed antiquated. During testing, the Argentine crews found ways to make up for the Nahuel's shortcomings, albeit by fooling the officers overseeing the trials. During combat trials, infantry threw smoke ahead of the tanks to allow the drivers to go through the trials not fully buttoned up due to the poor visibility from the driver's station. something which at least one officer noticed but chose not to report on. For firing trials, the tanks were supposed to advance, stop, shoot at targets, and resume movement. Hand mirrors were used to bore sight the cannon due to the gun sight's tendency to lose zero. Mobility trials were mixed in performance, with either the Nahuel throwing its tracks or suffering mechanical problems, or were conducted without any major flaws, showing that mechanical unreliability was a recurring theme with the vehicle, likely related to its overburdened suspension. With the trials succeeding despite these shenanigans, the tank was considered a success, and gave the Argentine crews considerable experience as well as proving the strength of the modern medium tanks. Later during testing, no trickery from the crews was necessary as the tank seemed to continually improve in its performance as time went on. In fact, in 1947, after years of testing, the tanks were refurbished completely to increase their reliability and improve crew conditions, especially for the driver who had received a new sliding vision block to improve visibility. These models were often referred to as the recycled or Sosa Molina models after the School of Mechanized Infantry director Sosa Molina, who requested these changes himself. The stowage was redesigned. 2 of the hull machine guns were removed, an armored cover was added for the headlights, the machine gunner and driver were given new hatches, the radio operator received a new wireless set number 19 Mark III, and the coaxial machine gun was swapped for a more common Madsen 7.65mm machine gun. In the 1940s, Argentina was looking for a way to show off its developing industrial muscle, and for all its faults, the Nahuel was exactly what they needed for that purpose. Its development cycle was extremely fast, taking around 4 months to produce their first prototype, and less than a year for a limited production of a dozen or so tanks. It was an impressive undertaking that took a lot of cooperation between Argentine companies and resulted in an acceptable modern medium tank. The tank itself was a shock to spectators at home and abroad. The army officers, after spectating the trials, were now completely convinced of the future of the tank. The civilians were dumbfounded with the idea that their country was now a tank-building nation. The crews were seemingly satisfied with them, and U.S. intelligence was caught completely off guard. The Nahuel in turn managed to show its usefulness, quelling the doubts that Argentina was capable of creating a modern, fully armored, gun-armed medium tank. Particularly, Argentine civilians thought that the tank was made out of cardboard, and the U.S. intelligence thought that it was made of scrap metal. In the case of the former, a civilian was allowed to bang his head against the steel hull, while for the latter, the Argentine authorities were happy to inform the Americans that they were wrong. Sadly, the tank didn't last in active service for more than a decade, as by 1948, M4 medium tanks were available. The Nahuel was quickly mothballed and then scrapped as the new Sherman tanks were more widely available and quickly gained the favor of the crews. No Nahuel tank remains today, although there are rumors that one might have survived the scrapping process. Still, it proved an important step towards the development of an Argentine armored force, and the experience obtained from the tank prepared the crews for the Shermans and other future tanks. That concludes our video about the Nahuel Argentine tank. What do you think? Was this tank too little too late for the Argentine armed forces, or was it just what they needed to show the prowess of the Argentine military and industrial base? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what we do and the videos we produce here at Tank Encyclopedia, feel free to send us some fuel money to keep us running. Visit us on our new Patreon page or via PayPal. Until next time, keep us in your sights. We here at Tank Encyclopedia want to give a special shout out to our medium and heavy tank supporters on Patreon: Alex Harvey, Andrew Oberg, Dan Fitzpatrick, Dave Schufert, Gustavo Sanchez, Joe, Leslie Hulkauer, O&M, Peter Bradbury, The Sasquatch, and Why Do You Care? Thank you so much for all of your support.